The baseball season is well underway, and Ari joins the pits of an IndyCar season. Hello, and welcome to AI, the podcast on analytics and sports. Say hello to our data scientists in Chicago. Hi, Ari.
Hi, Phil. Hi, everyone listening.
And we usually say hi to our other data scientists down in San Diego. Andrew's not joining this week, but we miss him. Andrew, get well. We'll see you soon. Well, we say we'll use the racing analogy. You joined a crew this weekend for pit stops. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, the Major League Baseball season is underway. We're approaching our fourth weekend, about 20 games. And all right, that gives us some initial indications right now. And one of them is an overarching trend about Major League Baseball's out-of-market streaming service.
Yeah, that's right. And I watch games like with a vengeance, as do probably many of you. And MLB TV with their blackout and controlling of out-of-market streaming service set viewership records. So opening day was the platform's most watched opening day ever. So really good indications. Also, the most watched single game, the Blue Jays-Yankees extra inning contest, had 47% more viewers than the previous record. So not just like a little bit, but way more than incremental. And get this, Phil, the first 18 days of Major League Baseball's season have included the 7 most watched days in the streaming platform's history, and that's like over 20 years. So viewership is enormous.
So Major League Baseball's off the starting line and looking pretty good in that regard. Let's go over some notes. This weekend, Ari, we get round 2 of the Dodgers and Padres. 3 games last weekend, 4-game series this weekend. It looks like it's well worth the hype. Now, Ari, big surprise, good, and big surprise, bad in the American League.
Yeah, well, depending on who you root for, but Dodgers, Padres, great to see Tatis not badly injured. But yeah, the Yankees have the worst record in the league, while the A's, started off with a bad start, now on an 11-game winning streak. So that's very interesting to see. And pitchers, the other topic is that sticky stuff. Some substances on their hand, possibly even suntan lotion. You can wipe it, and sticky and slippery affects the movement of the ball, and that's leading, potentially to a crackdown. Certainly, it's studying. Saris just had today some analysis, but the ball moves differently, and what are you going to do? Stop people from wearing sunscreen? So how that shakes out is going to be the next point of discussion for the season.
Well, the big question is, will Major League Baseball crack down? And if so, when will they do it, and how will they do it? How will they team up with the union as well? So that kind of frames the first 3 weeks and the first 20 games. Well done, Ari. Now we're looking over your shoulder. We get to talk some racing. Tell us what we're seeing there.
So this is the Barber racetrack near Birmingham, Alabama. And so I had like the time of my life this past weekend. Great experience. My day job company, Data Robot, sponsored, as you could see in the helmet here and on the wings in the back, Andretti Sports, the Indy car driven by Robert Magenis, great, award-winning race car driver. And what I like, our theme is winning at 200 miles an hour. So the data used in Indy racing is phenomenal. Got to spend, when I say behind the scenes, like literally hanging out multiple hours every day before, after the race. But got to learn, they have a war room, the same way baseball teams have a video room where the players can watch and plan beforehand. They watch the video of how they're doing, how the other race cars are doing. Dozens of sensors measuring things 1,000 times per second. understanding, you could see like the turns on the racetrack. There's only 3 on this track that you can pass on. So what's your strategy? And then the phrase warm-up lap is literally that. It's to warm up the brakes, warm up the engine, make sure the heat is distributed, and then it's like off to the races. So the other thing that was personally like amazing was got to go on the track for the first Indy race since the pandemic started 13 months ago. They didn't even race without fans. And when I was next to the person that said, start your engines, and got to escort the people into the pace car. So that was pretty remarkable. And, then spending a couple days there, and I tried to, almost like a movie actor, you try to role play. I try to just get my mind in the set of how do you win. And, one other takeaway is you're winning the individual race, but just like in baseball, 162 games, you win, you lose, all the fans like go home, and they, have a month or two going off doing stuff when you have a game the next day. And here you have a race the next day, then you have a qualifying race 4 days later in a different city. So you want to, not pout too much if you don't win, but, learn what could we do better? What should we look out for? How can we change things? And like in baseball, the ball has to be the same for every pitcher. They're tight controls. And in Indy racing, the engine has to have certain standards. Before and after every race, they come with equipment to make sure the inputs and outputs are required. Only a few cars have this camera, for the fans to watch, but that changes the aerodynamics. So they have to have every car with a camera turned off just to make everything equal. So it's less how can you make a better engine, and more how can you strategize or move the levers, so to speak, of what you can change in the car. And I can go on and on about that. Maybe I'll save some for next week. But great learning experience, and great to see people get back to in-person safely events. So it was great on many levels.
Well done. That was the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama in Leeds, a suburb of Birmingham. This week, NASCAR's at Talladega, about an hour drive away. And the IndyCar guys, they're at the St. Petersburg, Florida for the city street course there. One other racing note, Indianapolis Motor Speedway will host, as announced, it's going to host about half the normal capacity. So that's big news in IndyCar. And we'll talk more about racing and Ari's adventures throughout the season. Pretty cool, Ari. Well done. That's cool. All right. Let's talk about Formula One just for a second. European sports. Formula One circuit in Portugal in 2 weeks after Max Verstappen won in Italy. We do that to set up the Breakaway European Soccer Super League. Was broken up in about 48 hours. Amazing, all right, to see that secretly pop up, all of the unrest, and then it went away.
Yeah, no, it was, when I saw that pop up, I'm like, wait, is that a mistake? Or like this is huge news. Could be the top story in many other years. So the 15, 16 clubs and their owners were attempting to create a global name brand league out of the top teams from about 6 or so leagues. Super League, this attempt, it's similar to how the Premier League was formed 30 years ago. So people are seeing this as a way to shake up and break out and make money. And financially, no team wants to try to blow out the small city and fan base teams and smaller leagues in those tinier stadiums. And they'd much rather play other big teams with those corresponding big paydays associated with it. So today, Thursday, group of about 20 fans broke into Manchester United's training center to protest. And if you don't know, Man U is owned by the Glazer family. It's also the Super Bowl champ Tom Brady Buccaneers. So we'll see how that shakes out, but huge money involved. And every decade or so you hear of breakaway attempts, and different major sports. But this is a big one.
And this is where we'd want to hear from Andrew, because not only is he a big fan, he's also been involved professionally in a lot of the business of European soccer for the past decade. Sports betting. Data rights holder Genius Sports Group, probably not a household brand, but it has merged with DMY Technology. Genius acquired exclusive groups to distribute NFL betting data earlier this month. It replaced Sportradar. Genius has partnerships with the name brands: NBA, NCAA, FIBA, FIFA, English Premier League, and NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
Ari?
Yeah, and other news, big news coming out of NFL, and betting is a big topic that we keep bringing up, which keeps growing more and more, every week for the last couple of years. But the NFL is now partnering with DraftKings, Caesars Entertainment, and also FanDuel to be the first sportsbook sponsors. And the money estimated, we're looking at about $1 billion over the next 5 years.
Well, ESPN doing the same, creating a new sports betting NBA game of the week. It's called Betcast. That was last night as we record here on Thursday on ESPN Plus and ESPN2. NBC Sports in Chicago, where you are, an online sportsbook PointsBet, doing the same thing, a betcast of tonight's matchup between the Bulls and the Charlotte Hornets.
And I'm going to be watching that. That's one team I watch a lot are the Bulls, and made some recent changes, and they're just on the border of the play-in for the playoffs. Typically do well until the last quarter and then fade. So we'll see how that goes. But that very cool to see the Betcast. So I'm going to be watching that, and then also looking at the state of Arizona. They're going to be making a leap ahead of the pack of legal statewide gambling. So every pro team in the area, the Diamondbacks, Arizona Cardinals, the Suns, the Coyotes, they can take bets on premise, at the stadium, on college teams. Really anything except a prop bet on those college games.
Well, you said it. Each week there's another can you top this in the sports betting game. Let's talk mobile betting, because more than 80% of sports betting is in this country, the United States, is done on a smartphone or a computer. And that sets us up with what's happening in New York, Ari.
Yeah, so from New Jersey, grandparents from New York area, but they passed a budget a couple weeks ago. We're talking about mobile wagering. So the wagering after years of opposition from the governor, Andrew Cuomo, the Democrat. So in January, during NFL playoffs, is the big ticket. New Jersey did $83 million in revenue. So think of that for 1 month, $83 million. And New York, that was the highest month ever in history. New Jersey, did $83 million, and New York did $3 million. So close to, almost 30 times the rate. And that was according to New York Senator Joe Dabo. And he also said that 25% of New Jersey sports betting business comes from New Yorkers. And the Empire State, they're trying to get it done before the next Super Bowl, which is going to happen at that wonderful stadium, the SoFi Stadium in LA.
Yeah, so there are some truths about this, about mobile sports betting. And one of them you touched on is it can be uneven.
Yeah, it's uneven, 30 times in New Jersey over New York. But however you slice it, the betting on the mobile devices, it's far exceeded any projection for the adoption rate, the user adoption rate. But when you look at it this way, the sports book, they keep only about 7% of the bets that it handles, and the taxes are assessed on that amount, not on the much larger total amount that the money is actually wagered. So there are very little, arguably no massive tax benefits to those legal gambling. So like one proof point, New Jersey saw more than $6 billion wagered last year alone, but the cut of that $6 billion was just 50 million. That's a fraction of not even 1% of the state's large $40 billion budget.
Well, next door in Pennsylvania, about 3/4 of the $38 million in state tax revenue that came from sports betting was due to mobile betting in 2020. Its state budget was over 36 billion. So that windfall, you're right, it's just not there. Now, what's up with Bally's, or who's on third, or who's on the strip in Las Vegas, or on my regional sports network these days? This is where we need Andrew. In October 2020, Twin Rivers acquired the name Bally's from Caesars. November 2020, Twin River renames itself Bally's. Despite this, Bally's on the Strip in Las Vegas is still owned by Caesars. The Tropicana of Las Vegas Hotel and Casino is being sold to a new entrant among LA resort owners. Rhode Island-based Bally's will acquire the iconic Tropicana Casino on the Vegas Strip for about $300 million. The agreement also involves a transaction related to Bally's Blackhawk, Colorado and Rock Island, Illinois, those casino properties. But, Ari, take it from there.
So, the word Bally's, and I've stayed at all these places, Bally's as the corporation no longer owns the actual Bally's Las Vegas, that hotel on the Strip. That is actually owned now by Caesars, and Caesars considering renaming it as the Horseshoe, or the Horseshoe Casino, which is not to be confused with the original Binion Horseshoe in Vegas, which was around back in the 50s.
Was that confusing to you? I think it was to me. And we're the ones talking about it. I think it was confusing.
Yeah, different names. Bally's doesn't own Bally's.
Yeah. Again, we need Andrew. I think that's the third time I've said that during this. Okay, back to soccer.
Yeah, so back to soccer, Kevin De Bruyne doing this newer trend where he is, a player. He's leveraging analytics, and he leveraged this company, Analytics FC, to help negotiate a 4-year contract with Manchester City. He's 29 years old. He's a midfielder, 83 million pound deal, which is about 114 million US dollars. And he also sourced Brussels-based legal firm Atfield and the agency Rock Nation. So it's kind of a trend that players are doing to leverage analytics people to see how much am I worth. A lot of times agents are great at negotiating, but don't have the bandwidth to do like that analytical comparison at the weight that teams that employ dozens of people do. So De Bruyne, the player, commissioned that company, Analytics FC, to produce a report that analyzed his past, his present, and projected future performance and importance to the team, what that means in terms of dollars, and then benchmarked his salary against those of other world-leading attacking midfielders, and the expected goals, the expected assists, the effect that the player has on their team's chances of scoring, teams' chances of conceding goals. And one Premier League data scientist told the training ground guru that he expects really all big league or big name players to negotiate with a portfolio like this in the next couple of years. And I've started to see that in baseball and other places here in the States, but that makes a lot of sense to employ along with your agency analytics firms. Just, you're talking big dollars.
That's one instance where what's happening here stateside is filtering back to across the pond to Europe. Well, we close with this. 28%, and this is from Andrew, 28% of D1's men's basketball scholarship players are in the transfer portal and at least considering a move. You can go on the transfer portal and then bounce back or stay where you are. Syracuse women's basketball program has 11 players in the portal. We learned that today. Ari, are you in the portal?
I'm in the zone.
Yes, you are.
I'm interested in learning about the portal. Yeah, seeing what other players, go into that. Has big ramifications.
I think the NCAA has provided one more year where everybody can find a new dance partner. It'll be interesting to see the impact of that. But one thing we know for sure, with everything we just discussed, is that there are changes, and changes are being sped up on the post-pandemic back to business. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's travel industry is like getting sold out, and car rental took like 5 hours to get my car, just since they, even though they knew I was coming, they just didn't have cars ready. Not the workers there. Flights, overbooked. You were talking before, traffic in LA is almost back to normal. And then, we'll see where it goes. Could be more people have pent up, whether it's travel or shopping or entertainment when it comes back. So you may think, at least for a year, you may see more demand and more attendance than was in the past. And then a couple of years, maybe it reaches equilibrium. I don't know. I'm not prognosticating, but it's going to be exciting, post majority of COVID in the States.
Ari, if we'll wrap it up here, but literally, if you lifted your hands up, it would look like your hands were on the steering wheel of the picture. That'll be the one that we do the screen grab of and promote promote this. Well, look, we miss Andrew. Andrew, join us next week, and we hope that you join us too. This is for Ari. I'm Phil. Thanks for hanging out with us here at AAI, the podcast on analytics and sports. And we'll see you next week.